Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome you all to the live international webinar organized by CGC Janjuri. Well, my name is Kamal and I look up the International Affairs Department of CGC. So in this context, we are going to have today Professor Stephen Smith. Hello and namaste, Professor Stephen Smith.
Hello, everybody. It's very good to be here. Thank you very much.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So it's an immense pleasure to have you with us today. And since you are the head of department for research, innovation, and also one of the engineering department at University of York in UK, so it would be great to have you to have your views on applying engineering to the medical devices.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just share my screen now and
Sorry, sir. I also, before we proceed, we would like to welcome Miss Mahima. I think Miss Mahima also joined here. So welcome, ma'am, to the CGC Janjari Live webinar.
Thank you for inviting me. It is really a pleasure to be part of this platform, and I'm looking forward for interacting with you, Professor Smith, and the students. So you can go ahead and take the presentation.
I tell the students that Mahima is the Senior Recruitment Officer for India for University of York. So thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Thank you, Professor Stephen, sir. And so I also request Stephen, sir, to proceed with your presentation. And I request the students, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can write it on the YouTube and we'll put the questions and we'll write to the Stephen after the presentation.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the introduction. So I'll just share my screen now. Let's see. Is that okay? Is that looking good? Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us to hear this presentation. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Professor Stephen Smith. I'm Deputy Head of Department and Head of Research in the Department of Electronic Engineering at the University of York. And what I'd like to do is just to show you, for those of you who aren't familiar with the City of York in the UK, you can see that the city is in the middle of the UK, and it's only 2 hours, less than 2 hours by high-speed train from London, and it's about 2.5 hours from Edinburgh, and you can actually visit most of the main cities in the UK, Manchester and Birmingham, by just one train. So UK, you must remember, is a lot smaller than India, and you can visit many of the places easily in one day. And so here's some pictures also of the City of York, and you can see it's a lovely city. It's a historical city, a tourist city. It has many cafes and restaurants. It's got theatres and also some very well-known museums. So it's a lovely, safe place to live. And the university is also set in beautiful Parkland campus. The buildings surround a great big lake, which used to be part of a stately home. And you can see there the black-faced building to the right of the picture. That is the Department of Electronic Engineering, which we share with the Department of Physics. And so I belong to the Intelligent Systems Research Group at the University of York, and they are some of my colleagues. And we undertake world-leading research in areas associated with engineering. And I think it's really important to stress at this point of the presentation is that although the department is called Electronic Engineering, we do many types of engineering. So we do communications engineering, we do physical layer, we do audio engineering, and we are also starting to do electrical engineering as well as business management. But I'll describe those more in a moment. So to give you a bit more idea of the research groups within the department, we have 3 main research groups. One is in communication technologies. The second is intelligent systems and nanoscale systems, engineering, education, and management. And you might wonder why we have such a strong management presence within the Department of Electronic Engineering. Well, management is critical to the delivery of safe, secure, and economic solutions. So more detail here, communications technologies. We focus in on 5G ultra-high capacity density systems. And so this really concentrates on many aspects, the full range of the technology, from the underlying encoding of digital signals to get the best bandwidth, and also the other means of transmission. High altitude platforms, this is delivering telecoms facilities using the ability from high altitude platforms such as weather balloons, long endurance aircraft, and then at the other end of the scale with underwater networks as well. So in the University of York, we have one of the centers of excellence in understanding communications underwater. Then we also have virtual acoustic environments and electromagnetic compatibility, which of course is extremely important for delivering safe, reliable communications. Second research group is intelligent systems and nanoscience. And so this is a combination of different areas, from traditional electronic engineering and electronic systems to some broader, more diverse areas. And so the central one here, as you can see, is healthcare. Healthcare is a major area for the development of engineering systems, and that's why I'll be talking about medical device development in a moment. But we also have expertise in robotics, intelligent robotics, the architectures of computing, such as mini-core architectures and systems, and then at a very different level, nano devices and microelectronic design and automation at the nano and micro levels. And then the third research group is engineering, education and management. So as I said earlier, this is an interesting combination within a traditional electronic engineering department, but actually management and engineering education is critical to be able to deliver engineering solutions safely and efficiently. If we don't understand how to manage these processes, it doesn't matter how good the research and the technology is, it won't be useful. And so we have world-leading expertise in engineering education, entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, and skills frameworks. And I think one of the interesting things about our department is that 5 members of academic staff have developed spin-out companies. So I'm now going to move on from the introduction to the department to a specific area of research and development of technology. And so this is for one specific medical need, and this is for monitoring a condition known as Parkinson's disease. So most of you probably have known or know somebody with Parkinson's disease. It's a very common condition. It occurs in about 1 in 500 people around the world. And as we get older, it becomes more prevalent. So it's about 1 in 100 people aged 60 or over have Parkinson's disease. And so that's about 127,000 people in the UK alone. It's about 1 billion worldwide. So the primary symptoms of Parkinson's disease, why would we be interested in measuring this? Well, there are 2 main issues, 2 main challenges with caring for people with Parkinson's. One is that it can be very difficult to diagnose correctly. So it's very common to misdiagnose people with Parkinson's disease. In fact, it's commonly accepted that 25% of all people who have been told they have Parkinson's disease actually have another condition. And this is very important to get this right, because of course the medication is going to be very different for the condition the patient has. And the second main challenge with Parkinson's disease is monitoring the people once we know that they have it. We need to track their progress, And we also need to make sure that the medication's correct, or else they will suffer from serious side effects. So how is Parkinson's disease measured at the moment? Well, these are the signs and symptoms. There's a tremor or shaking, which I'm sure most of you have seen in people before, and that is between 3 and 8 hertz. There's a rigidity, a stiffening of the movement of the limbs, and there's a condition known as bradykinesia, and this is a slowing in movement, which can be anything from an imperceptible hesitation to a freezing of movement and the patient can't move. And then finally, we have a postural instability. That means a poor balance, and it leads to a poor walking or gait. So currently, these symptoms and signs are assessed by healthcare professionals subjectively, purely from visual interpretation. Now, this is very effective with well-trained professionals, but it can be very difficult to really determine, as I said earlier, whether somebody has Parkinson's disease or another condition. And so what we can do as engineers, we can measure these signs and symptoms with appropriate sensors, and then we can give a better informed objective assessment of whether a person has Parkinson's. So how do we do this? Well, we can use many types of sensor. And so you can see here, there are 3 types of devices and sensors. We have a digitizing tablet, a drawing tablet. We have a wearable, as you can see there, an IMU, inertial movement unit. And so that has accelerometers and gyroscopes embedded within it. And then the third picture you can see there, those are electromagnetic tracking sensors attached to the finger and the thumb. And those enable us to track the position of the finger and the thumb in 3D space. So these are the sensors. All of them will measure movement of the patient. But how can we then analyze those measurements to determine whether somebody has Parkinson's or not? Well, one of the tasks that's commonly undertaken in a clinic would be the patient would be asked to trace this shape that we can see here using a standard pen. And so you can see here that in the top picture, the patient with a pen is tracing this shape. They start in the middle and they trace the lines going round and round until they get to the outside. And while the patient is tracing this shape, the digitizing tablet is capturing the movement of the pen in real time and storing that as a set of XY coordinates. And once we have these coordinates, we can then develop what we call a velocity profile. And this is showing over time the speed of the pen as it speeds up and slows down as each of those lines on that shape are being copied. And so what we're seeing here is the pen accelerating and decelerating again and again. So this is interesting, but what does it tell us about the patient? Well, if we look very carefully, those velocity profiles or those pen movements that a patient has presented rather than somebody without Parkinson's, those with Parkinson's tend to hesitate when they draw the lines. And so if we focus in on the acceleration of the pen, we can see here there's a small acceleration, which I've labeled A, then a little deceleration or a hesitation, and then a stronger acceleration, which I've labeled B. And so this is something we can now see in the captured measurements that help differentiate between those people with Parkinson's and those that don't. And in fact, we hypothesize that this hesitation is that symptom of bradykinesia, a slowing of movement. So this is very good. It enables us to have some confidence in determining people who might have Parkinson's that don't, but we need to find more. We need to find more information within the signal that we've measured to determine and give us more confidence whether they actually have Parkinson's or some other type of neurodegenerative condition. And so this is where we use artificial intelligence and machine learning. We use a range of techniques such as deep learning, convolutional neural networks, artificial neural networks, evolutionary algorithms, and there's a whole host of those: evolutionary strategies, genetic algorithms, genetic programming, multi-objective genetic programming, and support vector machines. But one thing that you have to recognize is not all machine learning is the same. You need to determine from the data the best type of machine learning to apply, and also what you want to learn from the outcome. And so certain technologies, certain techniques like deep learning are very, very efficient at finding solutions, as long as you have lots of data and you also aren't too concerned about how the classification was achieved. Now, in a medical context, we often don't have much patient data. It takes time and effort to measure patients. And we also want to know how those movements actually led to the classification of Parkinson's. And so for this reason, we use what we call white box genetic programming. So evolutionary algorithms, they're called that because they're inspired by Darwinian evolution. And what we do is that we have a population of solutions which is evolved by mutating the fittest. And so I'm just going to give you a little example of how this actually works. So here we have our digitizing tablet. We have the patient again drawing or tracing that geometric figure. We then, this translates to the measurements that the digitizing tablet is capturing. We then represent those and code them and present them to 5 genetic programs, evolutionary programs. So the way this works is that we initialize 5 separate solutions, and they're initialized randomly. So that means that each of these programs will work. They will take the data from the patient and they will predict whether it was actually from somebody with Parkinson's or without. And the way we train these algorithms is that we, first of all, we collect data from 50 people who we know have Parkinson's through exhaustive analysis. And then we also measure 50 people who we know don't have Parkinson's. So we now have a total of 100 sets of data. We pass that 100 sets of data through each of these randomly initialized programs, evolutionary algorithms, and we get each one to predict which of those 100 was from somebody with Parkinson's and which of those 100 was somebody who did not. Now, you can imagine, because these programs have been randomly initialized, they're not going to be very good at actually determining which is which. And so we might see from this first set of 5 that they all perform quite badly. They might, for example, the first one might only get, say, 52 out of 100 right. The second one might only get 47 out of 100 right. The third might only get 50 out of 100 right. The fourth, 49. But the last one's very good and it gets, say, for example, 55 out of 100 right. Now, 55% is not a very accurate solution, and it's not going to be satisfactory for accurately determining whether somebody has Parkinson's. But what we know is that this last algorithm was the best of the 5. So we keep the last one, we throw away the previous 4, and then we make copies of that 5th algorithm. So we now have 5 identical copies, and then we gently mutate or alter 4 of those 5. So we have a new population of 5 individuals. We then pass the same data through again, and this time the second algorithm might be the best one. Say, for example, getting 58 out of 100 right. So we keep the second one, We throw away the other 4, they die. That second one reproduces, has 4 offspring or copies. We then gently alter or mutate those 4 copies, and we will now have a new population of 5 algorithms. And we do this again and again, maybe a few thousand times. And for complex nonlinear problems, evolutionary algorithms can lead to a very accurate solution, a very accurate classifier, which we can then use to accurately classify people with Parkinson's. So how do we use this in the clinic? So we've taken this into many hospitals worldwide. This is in the University of California, San Francisco Veterans Affairs Hospital. And you can see here that we've attached sensors to the finger and the thumb of the patient. And this is so we can undertake what's known as a finger tapping exercise. It's where the patient is asked to tap their finger and thumb as quickly and widely as possible. And in people with Parkinson's, you'll see a hesitation and a small amplitude in the tapping of the finger and thumb, which will differentiate it from people with without Parkinson's. And so how do we use this with an evolutionary algorithm? Well, we take the measurements, the position measurements of the finger and the thumb, and then we extract many measurements or features, such as the frequency of cycles, the maximum overall amplitude, and you can read them here. So we measure those 19 features, and then we pass those into our evolutionary algorithm. And we use these to train the algorithm to differentiate between those people with and without Parkinson's. Alternatively, and an important, powerful thing about evolutionary algorithms is that we can also train it on the original raw data. So you remember these are the velocity profiles of the movement of the finger and thumb as the finger and thumb is opening and closing. We encode those and we can pass the raw data into the evolutionary algorithm, and then the algorithm is effectively extracting its own measurements or features to be able to arrive at a more accurate classification. And so here are some of the results. Here are some of the outputs. And what we can see here, hopefully you can see this. This is showing simply the opening of the finger and the thumb and the closing of the finger and the thumb in one cycle of finger tapping. And we can see that for somebody without Parkinson's, and we can also see it for somebody with Parkinson's. And the two look actually very similar. But if we now start to look at the accelerations, we can see here in the person without Parkinson's, as they open their finger and thumb, there's a little acceleration, and then a little deceleration as the finger and thumb are open. Then when they begin to close, there's a strong acceleration and a very strong deceleration when the finger snaps shut. But in somebody with Parkinson's, it's not as clear as this, and we can see this jagged response of continuous probably calls to the finger and thumb from the brain to open and close the fingers. And this is probably due to the lack of dopamine in the brain, which is a neurotransmitter which completes the finger movements. So this technology is being used in clinical trials. It's being used in 3 clinical trials in the UK, and these are for repurposed drugs. So the first one here is simvastatin. That's a statin which is normally used for reducing cholesterol in the heart, but it's also thought it might have a neuroprotective effect. In other words, it might slow or even halt the progression of Parkinson's. And so we're supporting a number of hospitals throughout the UK by providing an objective measure of Parkinson's using this finger tapping equipment. And then there are 2 other studies that will be beginning soon, sponsored by the University of Cambridge and also in King's College London. So that's being able to help diagnose Parkinson's. The second problem I told you earlier was in actually monitoring the progression of Parkinson's. And so the medication for Parkinson's is very good, but after 5 years to 10 years, people can suffer side effects, and these are uncontrollable movements, involuntary movements known as dyskinesia. And they can be so severe that the patients are unable to care for themselves and they need extra help. And if they fall, then they might be admitted to hospital. So it's very important to actually manage the medication to ensure that the best medication is being administered. Now, we can only do that if we have a good understanding of when these side effects occur in relation to when the medication was given. At the moment, that's very difficult because nobody can be with a patient 24 hours a day and make a good record of when the side effects occurred. And so we can see on this graph here that over time, over years, that these fluctuations of too much medication and not enough medication become more severe. And so it gets to the point where a patient either has too much medication, they can't control their movements, or they don't have sufficient medication and they suffer from bradykinesia and they're frozen. So how can electronic engineering help this? Well, this is really a good example of how all of those areas of engineering that I talked about before can come together. So first of all is designing and implementing these sensors, these little accelerometer and gyroscope sensors, which are fabricated in these small devices, casings, and these are positioned on these different parts of the body. Also then the communication, how can we confidently and reliably communicate the data of the movement of the patient from these devices via Bluetooth to another smart device and then upload it to the internet. It sounds straightforward, but in reality, it's very difficult. And then how can we manage the development and the deployment of this technology? Well, that has to be done using our engineering management skills and knowledge. And so this is the output. So we upload that data from those sensors, and then we pass it through one of our evolutionary algorithms, which has been trained to classify and identify the movements associated with too much medication, and then draw this time chart. So you can see on this time chart, it starts at 1500, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it goes through 24 hours to the next day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The red dots here, taken at regular intervals, are indicating when the medication was taken, and the medication is listed here automatically. And then importantly, these green lines are showing when the evolutionary algorithms have detected movement that have been associated with too much medication, this dyskinesia. And the dark green lines are high dyskinesia, and the light green lines are moderate. And so we can see here that after there's not too much dyskinesia during the day, overnight, but the next day, when these two drugs are taken, there is a lot of dyskinesia. And so now that the healthcare professional has this chart, they can now readjust that medication to smooth out these peaks of side effects. And importantly, we need to understand the efficacy, how well that this works. And we can see here the efficacy for the different grades of dyskinesia. In hospitals, they are looking for grade 3 and grade 4. And we can see here that we have what we call an area under ROC curve, which is a way of representing the performance of the classifier as 0.85 and 0.93 respectively, which is very good. And because we're using evolutionary algorithms, we can also see how these algorithms perform depending on whether the patient is walking or sitting. And so we have here another ROC curve, this evo-operational characteristic curve, and we can see that the results are a lot more accurate when the patient is sitting rather than when they're walking, when there's more error, as you might expect, because there are more movements which can be easily confused with dyskinesia. So we have this technology. How do we get it to the people who need it? Well, the best way is through overseas collaborations. We have undertaken clinical studies throughout the UK, the University of California, San Francisco Memory and Aging Centre, in Dubai, the Monash Medical Centre in Melbourne, Australia, Neuroscience Institute in Singapore, and also in Seattle, USA, and Shanghai in China. So getting the technology to people who need it is a challenge. It's very different to do research. It's very different to do world-leading research, but then to be able to commercialize that and getting that to the patient so the patient benefits is, again, something that engineering management is particularly useful for us to use. And so I'm co-founder and a director of Clear Sky Medical Diagnostics, which is a university spin-out company. And we have now 2 clinically validated and medically regulated devices, the 2 that I showed you earlier in this presentation. We have protected the intellectual property through 12 patent applications, 9 of which are now being granted. And we're now undertaking marketing to deliver this to countries worldwide. But one of the interesting things about still working in a university and having a spin-out company is how I can engage the students in the development of this research technology and also the marketing as well. So I currently have an engineering management group of students, and they are working now on investigating the market opportunities for these devices in the USA, the UK, and China for the LID monitor and the PD monitor, and they will report back at the end of their project to Clear Sky's board of directors their findings on the market opportunities. So Clear Sky, if you're interested, there's the web address for it, www.clearskymd.com. And there you can learn about how we're taking our world-leading research, developing it with our understanding expertise in all sorts of electronic engineering, from the understanding of the algorithms, the understanding of the hardware, the communications technologies required to securely communicate the data back to the servers, and also, as I mentioned earlier, the management of actually deploying the devices into market. And I should point out there are many people who contribute towards this work. One of the really exciting things about working in a research intensive university are the opportunities for collaborations worldwide. So I've already mentioned some of these groups that we work with: University of California, San Francisco, National Neuroscience Institute in Singapore, Monash Health in Australia. And recently we've been working with IIT Indore and IIT Delhi as well. So there are many opportunities for world-leading research. So very briefly now, I'm going to take you through some of the taught MSc opportunities, some of those courses, some of those programs we offer at the University of York, and how hopefully now you can see how all of these have some relevance to the work that I've just described. So first of all, communications engineering. This is currently led by my good colleague, Dr. Paul Mitchell. And so this taught MSc, which is 1 year, 1 intensive year, covers these areas of mobile communication systems, LAN protocols, wireless satellite networks, and advanced wireless transmission and other subjects as well. Digital systems engineering. This is really an in-depth understanding of how to design new digital circuits, and this is done through FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays. This is programming of hardware, and also the associated skills around that. So this is a way of developing new devices, prototyping them through FPGA, and understanding the tools and systems to achieve that. Dr. Martin Schlesser heads up the embedded wireless systems taught MSc. And so this is very much the deployment of communication systems. This is very much a practical level of understanding the development of the deployment in terms of network security, the protocols, the sensors and instrumentation, all very relevant to health technologies as well. Intelligent robotics is headed up by Dr. Mark Post, and this is really about, again, using machine learning and other intelligent systems to control swarms of robots, as well as developing some of the robots themselves. This is where the real future in intelligent robotics is in the software solutions. Many companies are developing very good advanced hardware, but actually controlling them effectively and efficiently is another challenge. Music audio and music technology, well, you might wonder what relevance this might have towards modern needs and indeed healthcare, but actually it's critical to healthcare. I'm also doing a project in collaboration with University in London to look at the speech of people with Parkinson's. So when people have Parkinson's, their speech is affected. And by analyzing the audio of the speech, using again machine learning techniques, we can help determine the condition of the patient. But there are many other applications as well, where audio and music technology is of great importance. And then finally, a word about the MSc in engineering management. So as I've mentioned before, it's critical that we have good management to be able to deliver these engineering solutions. So this is a management course, but it's delivered and it's taught within the Department of Electronic Engineering. And why are we doing this? Well, we found that many people have a bachelor's in engineering, then want to move into management. Many go into management schools, but we felt this was not using their bachelor's experience to the best that they can. And so what we have here are a typical suite of management modules, such as marketing, law, ideation, enterprise, accounting and finance, but also in an engineering context. So the examples will use your bachelor's engineering skills and your experience. And then once you've graduated from this program, you'll be in an ideal position to enter into management into a large engineering company. And finally, I just want to talk about research degrees as well. We offer research degrees. Most people are probably familiar with a PhD, Doctor of Philosophy, which is typically 3.5 years at York. But there's also an opportunity with a 1-year MSc by research. So this is a master's degree, but rather than taught like the programs I've just shown you, this is through a small research project over the course of 1 year. And this gives you an opportunity to study an area in depth with a member of academic staff, which might then lead on to a PhD or to employment in industry. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening and being there. If there are any questions, I'll be very happy to answer.
Thank you, sir, for the great discussion over the topic. Now I got to know that engineering is everywhere. So when we see the medical devices, so now I will look that there are a lot of engineering is used to create these devices. So yes, I have received few questions from the students here. So I'm going to ask you a few questions here. So one question is, which are the major industries in which the students of electronic and communication engineering can work?
Yeah, so I think one of the great things about engineering is that worldwide, and certainly in the UK, there is a big shortage of engineers. And one of the other things about engineering, electronic engineering, it gives you a lot of skills to be able to pursue different types of career. So people might think, obviously, of working in maybe electronic circuits or device development, but there are broader areas that people, past students from our department have gone into. We teach computer programming, so many go into software houses. Some go into other areas of engineering, like aerospace engineering. We have people work for ARM, who are the people who design chips, which are in probably almost every mobile phone in the world. We have people who go to work for companies like the BBC and also Rolls-Royce. So there are a wide range of engineering companies, but some also then go to work in financial services, which you might think is strange, but actually it's really what we're teaching people is how to understand and learn about systems and the way things work. And engineering is all about finding practical solutions to problems. So there are many opportunities.
So as we know that the entire world is affected by COVID-19, and there are a lot of computer softwares and medical devices are being used to diagnose or to for the testing kits as well. So how much is the important? What is the role of electronic engineering in these equipments, in advanced engineering, or maybe to developing these medical devices for COVID-19 specifically?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. What we found is that people are now accelerating to using technology to really measure people as far as possible in their own homes. So we already have the capability to do a lot of the measurements at homes, but setting up the infrastructure and deploying that has always been slow. It costs money and it takes commitment. And this again is an important thing for engineering management, because we need to manage that change. We have the technology, we know how to do it, but how you manage that change so you can get people to understand and start to accept these changes. And that's the patients, their carers, and also the health professionals. We all need to start to work a different way, but it's providing huge opportunities for engineers.
Great, sir. So we also discussed, I think you also mentioned about some artificial intelligence points. So what is the future of robotics or artificial intelligence as the engineering is becoming advanced day by day? So what is the role and future of artificial intelligence in the coming world?
Yeah, so I think everybody's becoming more and more used to artificial intelligence. I mean, whenever we go shopping on Google or other websites, there are often predictions made for us of what we might be interested in. Artificial intelligence, like all technology, has to be used carefully. We have to make sure it's used securely and that people's privacies are respected. But as long as we do that, then I think there are huge opportunities to make the world a more efficient, safer place.
So do you think that if artificial intelligence can be developed so high that it could become the threat to the world, maybe it will replace the persons, the employees with robots over there in the factories? Do you think it will also create some negative
Yes.
impact?
Well, I think this has always been a concern. If you look back to the Industrial Revolution a couple of 100 years ago, that was a big fear then. I think and that's what I mean, we have to take care of the way we use this technology. But I think there is an opportunity where artificial intelligence, robotics, and intelligent robotics can replace a lot of the mundane tasks and the dangerous tasks that we ask many people to do on our behalf, and to really improve the quality of life for everybody. It has to be done carefully, it has to be done with a conscience, but the opportunity's there. There are many jobs, there are many occupations at the moment which aren't safe, which aren't healthy. I think it's an opportunity to use intelligent robotics and AI to reduce those where we can.
So I understand it depends on the people how we use the technology to make this world a better place or make this as a threat. So it depends on the people here. Okay, so these are the question. I think one more question is here. What is an artificial neural network?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, there are many different types of machine learning. An artificial neural network, or an ANN it's known, was one of the first ones developed. And the idea of it actually goes back many years. It goes back to the 50s. And this is where somebody was looking at ways of taking a neuron in the brain and simulating that in software. And so an artificial neural network is a computer model or simulation of a neuron in the brain.
That's great. I think these are the questions which have been received by us, and I request Mahima. I think she would like to speak something.
Thank you so much, Kamal and Professor Smith. I have to say this was really interesting for us to know. Like Kamal said, that how engineering is actually used into medical devices. Probably we never really thought from that angle, from engineering aspect, to look at the medical field. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. To all the students who are attending this session, I would just want to kind of let you all know that we are offering free online courses for students. And there is a program which says engineering is the future. And there are a lot of other interesting programs as well, which you may be interested to register. So I don't know if Kamal, you will be able to share the link. I'm sharing the link here with you.
Okay.
The website is york.ac.uk. So if you could please, go on the website, and in case you're interested to register for these free online courses, please feel free. It'll give you an idea what global education and interactive education may look like. Professor Smith has already mentioned about the programs that we are offering in the field of engineering. Engineering management is something which is very, very popular at University of York, and we are happy to accept students from different engineering background. So we do every year get applications right from electronic, electrical to computers, civil engineering, petroleum engineering students applying for these programs. This is jointly offered by School of Engineering and School of Management. And generally, if you have a look at the website, you will see some of the companies and very prestigious companies where students have been placed after studying this program. That's mainly what I wanted to talk about the program. So just to give you a background about University of York, Professor Smith has already mentioned about the location. We are located in the city of York, which is about 2 hours away from London. University of York is among the top Russell Group University. In fact, we are among the top 5 Russell Group University as per NSS, National Student Satisfaction Survey. It's a very research extensive university, and we have received Gold Award for our teaching excellence. So that's majorly talks about the quality of education. We are open for applications, for master's application for September 2020, and we may come up with some programs in for January 2021 as well. Please have a look at the website. My contact details are also given on the website. Otherwise, I'll be happy to share my contact details here on this side. These are my contact details. That's just my card. So I'm based in New Delhi. I'll be happy to hear from you. And if you need any assistance from my end, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you so much. That's all I wanted to share.
I think, ma'am, I think your university has a great expertise. We have great professors here, so we will definitely seek some sort of collaboration, maybe for some exchange programs, some articulations, or some summer schools over there. And I wish to meet Professor Stephen when he comes to India. So let's see.
I love India. I was there. Luckily, I was there earlier this year before the lockdown. So yes, I'll be very happy to come back again.
Great, sir. So after pandemic, when you'll be coming to India, it will be great if you come to us in the campus, and it will be a great time. And we'll seek some of collaboration, the possible collaboration to benefit our campus students to recruit for University of York.
I'd be very happy to. It sounds very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am, for being with us today. It was a great session. Really appreciate your, it was a great informative session to us. And thank you once again, and hope to see you soon in India. And all the best. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamal, and thank you, Chandigarh Group of Colleges, for hosting this and for inviting University of York. Hopefully, once things get improved, we'll definitely meet. Thank you.
That's great.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.